Welcome back to DAGryffyn Hobby. My name's Dave. It's time for an update on my K-Line Redding GP39. I've been fiddling with this K-Line GP39-2 Redding Lines engine, and I've made a little progress. I already removed the rear truck, took the motor out, cleaned it, and lubricated it all. Next, I need to do the same for the front truck. I've already taken the front one apart once, but I want to show you what the procedure is. So I put it back together, and then we'll figure out what to do with the mess after that. You can see one of the reasons I might be having an issue is this power wire came off the distribution board here. So I'll need to do something about that. But for the moment, we can go ahead and take that out. Usually comes out with the spacer attached to it. If not, make sure you don't lose it. It would be sitting inside the truck. You need that to keep it isolated from shorting out. And what that does is remove the pickup. And again, here's the isolation block for the pickup. Don't lose that. Next, you go ahead and remove the screw for the ground. I'm gonna put it back in the truck so I don't have to figure out later what screw goes there. With those two screws removed, you can flip it over and take the screw out from under the truck that attaches it to the motor. And once that's out, the truck comes apart. Now you can see this mess that I found in here. That's all residue from the brass gear being stripped out. You can see here it's almost completely gone. So what I'm figuring happened is somewhere between the axles, the gears, and this gear, this got jammed up. The motor kept running and just wore away at the gear. I did find this complete piece, at least I think it's this complete piece, on trains.com, so I ordered that. It's 10 bucks total, parts and shipping. Hopefully it will be here in a few days and I can get this back together. But in the meantime, I might as well clean up the truck and the motor and get ready for the next step. Take off the side frames. I'm gonna put the screws back in just so that I don't have to figure out which screws go where. I already took the front casting off. It's just held on by that one screw and kind of press fit by this knob here. So once you take that screw out, you just gently wiggle it back and forth, up and down as much as you can without stressing the piece until it comes loose. And then I put that screw back in place again just to keep track of it. Next, I'm going to remove the coupler. Be careful with this. This spring is actually under a whole lot of tension, so try not to let it go when it pops out, like I did the first time and then had to search for it. And with that, we have a clip, a clear plastic washer, the spring, another clear plastic washer, and usually this would just come off, but this has been wired together here. Okay, with that wire out of the way, this part just comes off. And then the coupler comes off. Now, the great thing about these trucks is that they come apart. There's 4 screws, one in each corner. Once you loosen those 4 screws, the truck splits into 2 pieces and the wheels come out. I really like the fact that the truck comes apart like that. It really lets you get in there and clean it up. When you put these back together, be aware that there's a flat spot on each of the bushings and make sure those go back in the right way. So this gear is kind of tough. They're both a little stiff. So I'm gonna clean this up as best I can. Look at that lovely gold gear goo. Now, this is a mess, so I'm gonna go ahead and spray it with some contact cleaner. It's really on there. So I did a first spray and I'll kind of scrape and clean off as much as I can. And then I'll spray it again. Now I still need to clean up the motor, and that kind of comes out on an angle from here, if I remember properly. Yeah, there we go. This gear should be okay because it's the brass gear that's designed to wear to prevent damage to other gears like this one. And the gear seems okay. Okay, yeah, and it just comes right off. Motor feels good, gear looks good. So I don't have the new gear yet, but I do want to put it back together just so that I don't lose pieces or forget where things go. Now, I don't know if I should put a little oil down there or not, but considering I sprayed it with contact cleaner, I figure a drop or two is not going to hurt. Also, it sits this way, so any residual will drip down, not into the motor. Now here's something, I should have paid attention to which way the bracket was on here. Okay, that's all cleaned up. See, this foam doesn't go away. It's stuck to everything. A flat spot on these bushings. Got to make sure they're in the right spot. And on this one, that's sitting on this base. So this one turned. Okay. You know what? I'm going to take a step back. I didn't oil these. I'm going to put some oil on both sides. Okay, then pay attention to the flat spots on those bushings and lay them in place. Put some more just down here, just for the heck of it, because it's open and I can. Then the top. That doesn't seem to be sitting right. And afterwards, just check the gap between the two halves of the truck to make sure it's actually together and not spread apart or loose. Those wheels move so much better than before. Something I did notice is that they rub on the inside of these wheels. So on the other truck, I just put some oil on the face of those gears, so that at least helps a little bit between the gear and the wheel. See, more foam. Can't get rid of this stuff. So you put the T-shaped piece through the top of the coupler and then put it through the truck. Put a little Labelle down in there. Put that on. One clear washer. The spring stands up, so you have to compress it and hopefully hold it down without launching it in your face. And then the clip. And then just make sure the clip's seated all the way. Once that's back together, see if it moves freely side to side, and this one is not. I don't like the plastic part. I wish they'd used metal, but then again, in some of them that I've seen with metal, that's been prone to zinc rot. So just put a little oil or grease on there and it works a lot better. Put the front steps back on. Remember, there's that little nub under there, so make sure that's in place before you tighten the screw, or you could crack the casting. Okay. I think these are Williams traction tires, but they seem to fit both the diameter of the wheel and the width of the groove. Actually, they look like two different ones. Rear one fits better. More foam. I can't get rid of this stuff. Reminds me of a time one of my buddies put a whole bunch of packing peanuts in my toolbox at work, and even after I emptied everything out, I would still randomly find packing peanuts in my toolbox that were just stuck in there. I mean, those things never go away. So yeah, I'm going to be finding little pieces of foam on this engine probably for as long as I have it. Okay, so that truck's all back together minus that center gear, but the center gear is held in place between the truck and the motor. I think I'm going to put it back on for now. When I've got the part, I'll take it back off. Maybe in the meantime, I'll try to run it with one motor. And this is the wire that was broken, and it looks like it goes right here. And I thought this was like an electrical device, but it's really just a splice to hold different wires together in a group. A couple of these joints don't look so great, I mean, as opposed to this one that's off. So I really could cut them one by one and splice them together without this board, but I haven't decided that yet. Right now, this motor is geared and this one is not. So this motor will spin freely. I've got my K-Line Redding GP39-2 back on the rails. It's been an interesting process getting it there. This engine was a good reminder for me to not jump to conclusions when I'm diagnosing something. Almost right away, I had decided that the reversing board was bad. I mean, it seemed like it was. It could have presented that way, but really, I didn't take the time to stop and really think and look at it. The reason I thought it was the reversing board was I put it on the rails, I used it a little bit, I smelled smoke, and then it stopped operating. I could get it every once in a while to jerk forward like, a 1/4 inch or something, but it wasn't working. When I looked at the board, it looked like the back of the reversing board had some burn marks on it, so I just assumed that the board was bad. I did some research looking into boards and other options, and it looked like it was going to be like a $100 fix. And for an engine I paid $100 for, I just didn't want to put that kind of money into it. So while I was kind of waiting to figure out what I was going to do with it, I figured I would take it apart and clean everything up and just do some really basic maintenance and see what happened. I found a number of things doing this basic maintenance. First, I found that I had a broken power wire coming up from one of the trucks. Right away, I thought, well, you know what? That could definitely affect the way that any electronics or components function within the engine. So at that point, I was like, okay, maybe it's not the board. Let's go back to basics and let's inspect all the wires. And what I found was in this engine, it has a small square distribution board. It has no function other than to link numerous wires together. So there's a row of red wires, there's a row of black wires. And looking at that, the red wires really did not look too good. One of them was snapped off, one of them was kind of corroded. And I just figured, you know what, let me desolder those 4 wires from that little board, snip off the ends, solder together those 4 wires separate from the board. I feel like it's always a good diagnostic step to eliminate something from the equation. And in this case, it was that small board. Why worry about the connectivity between the 4 points on that board when I could just solder the 4 wires together? So that's what I did. And when I put it back on the track, it definitely seemed to be functioning better. That right there kind of told me that the board really wasn't bad. It was the electrical continuity through the engine. Since that seemed to help, I then went back to the idea of just doing basic maintenance. And I took the trucks all apart, cleaned out all the old lubricants, cleaned the dirt off the wheels and the gears. I found broken and dried traction tires. One of the center gears in one of the trucks was completely destroyed. So, I mean, these are numerous things that added up to the engine not working. The one truck had the gear that was all chewed up, and it was partially chewed up because the wheels weren't turning properly. So the wheels weren't turning properly, they probably locked up, the motor gear kept spinning and just chewed the brass gear completely up. And luckily I found one on trains.com for like $5, so that made me really happy. Not only that I found one, but that it cost $10 with shipping. Amazing. Of course, now I'm thinking I should have gotten 2 or 3 of them since I was paying for shipping, but you know, you live, you learn. So I ordered that, and while I was waiting for that, I went through the truck and completely cleaned it out, sprayed it down with contact cleaner to get all the old residue off, took the traction tires out, cleaned it, let it dry, lubed it up, and it was rolling well after that. Looking back, there were a number of things that were affecting the running. The poor conductivity through the red pickup wires that came up from the center rail and fed through that little distribution block. Traction tires were bad and dried and causing it to kind of hop and bobble all along. The gears were filthy and needed to be cleaned and relubricated. And that one center gear in the one truck was just destroyed. So when the motor was spinning and not touching the gear, it was okay, but once the wheels turned a little bit and it hit the gear, it locked up again. So my first, assumption was the board, and it turned out to be not the problem at all. Take your time when looking at these things and diagnosing them. Don't jump to conclusions like I did. I'm glad I didn't go out and buy a board because, I would use it for something else, but $100 wasted would really not work for my approach to the hobby. $100 engine, $10 worth of parts, some patience, some fiddling, and it's working. And I am really happy with it. And now that it's running, I am really, really happy with its performance. It doesn't have TMCC, it doesn't have cruise control or anything like that. It just runs well and smooth and consistent. When I compare this engine, which is just purely conventional, to another engine or two that I have TMCC without cruise, this one actually runs smoother and more consistent. It's pretty impressive. One thing I do not like about this engine is the horrible sounds in it. I can't get it to make a bell sound, and the horn is just horrible. I do have a rail sounds board that Nick had given me at one point, so maybe that will go in there if it fits. It might be worth a try. I think it'd be really cool to get rail sounds out of this, but that's a project for another day. For right now, I'm just thrilled that it's running. So don't be afraid to dig into an engine. And if you're hesitant about working on any engines, find something cheap. I started with really, really inexpensive post-war Scout, other engines like that, that I wasn't going to be too concerned about if I broke them, fried them, set them on fire. So I started with cheap stuff, and I just kept going. I'm still hesitant to work on anything with TMCC and rail sounds and cruise control and all that stuff. I'm not comfortable with it yet, but this engine has given me a bit of a intro into that, in that I had to really get in there and figure out what was going on, and now it works. So there's a line from one of my favorite 80s movies, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it's all you need is a taste of success, and you might find that it suits you. So like Lane Meyer, I'm going to go and take this baby out for a drive. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on DAGryffyn Hobby.